Morning, Wareham. It is Monday, June 3rd. We have a great show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. Barbara Meehan is in the studio this morning to discuss Alzheimer's advocacy. Also, a trip to New England Wildlife Center and cooking with Jean Lanahan is part of today's program. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the weather, traffic report, and the news headlines are next. Well, I do not know what time you woke up this morning, but at 5, there were some clouds out there, but it's going to be mostly sunny. It's going to be a gorgeous sunny day with high at 72 and low at 46. Tuesday, tomorrow, sunshine and some clouds, high at 67. Rain showers after midnight are expected with low at 56 degrees. Route 3 and 495 are great. Safe travels, everyone. And now to the news. There were a few news stories over the week, and here are the news headlines. Wareham Weekly newspaper had the following stories. Erica and Justin Kennedy presented their plans for Whiskey and Jane, a cannabis micro business, to the public at the town meeting on Friday. Whiskey and Jane, which will be located at the site of the old pharmacy at 24 Cranberry Highway, would include 3 smaller businesses, cultivation, retail, and a social consumption lounge. In her presentation, Erica Kennedy said that the Whiskey and Jane is committed to giving back to the community above and beyond what is required. And first day of June began with warm weather and the Buzzards Bay Open Water Rolling Challenge. 95 proud owners of kayaks, canoes, rowboats, dories, and gigs, including wellboats, came to the Onset Beach to participate in a 3-mile-long race. Traditionally, the Rowing Challenge is hosted by Fort Tabor Park in New Bedford. However, thanks to the efforts of Lee Socorro and other members of the Buzzards Bay Rowing Club, for the first time in 13 years, the competition was held on Onset. And also, Wareham Free Library has announced its technology programming for the month of June. Every Tuesday in June at 1 p.m., the library will continue to run basic computer classes for adults. Students will be instructed on several courses on how to utilize computers, from the use of keyboard and mouse, access the internet, set up an email account, be safe while surfing the web, to the use of Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and organizing files and folders. Spaces are limited and registration is required. Laptops will be provided by the library. To register, please contact the reference or the outreach librarian Stephen Miller at 508-295-2343, extension 1012, or check out the library website at www.warehamfreelibrary.org. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more. Okay, a little correction for the first story of the day of Erica and Justin Kennedy. It is the Whisk and Jane. Apparently, I kept saying whiskey. Anyhow, no promotion to a whiskey. Okay, now we're going to continue to our special programs. Now a trip to the New England Wildlife Center to learn what they're doing and to see those cute furry animals. An episode of Dr. Dolittle in real life. This is wildlife care at New England Wildlife Center.
These are the most disenfranchised animals that veterinarians care for.
Established in 1983, its headquarters in South Weymouth to its recently acquired branch on Cape Cod, this nonprofit sees a wide range of patients.
There's 225 different species of wild animals that come to us, and there's about 150, 175 different species of non-traditional pets.
Even without insurance, these patients receive a comprehensive health care.
Each animal gets its own individual chart, medical chart, and they get tracked day by day.
Everything from x-rays, blood work, to a special diet. I bet they are so grateful. How grateful are they?
They're not very grateful at all. Our patients are not grateful. I mean, our patients want to be free. You know, it's like girls want to have fun. Wild animals want to be free.
Like this bunny who had a tibia fracture. Today, he gets released.
So the goal is for a wild animal to be released back into the wild, it needs to be self-sustainable. So that means it has to be able to find its own food, has to be able to escape danger, has to be able to find protection.
The majority of patients here are victims of human actions.
I would say 25% of our animals come in because they have lead poisoning. Probably 20% come in because they have rodenticide poisoning. So these are the after effects of the impact that people have had on these animals.
With that said, the mission here is simple.
Our goal and our mission is to be a safety net and to be a safe haven for sick, injured, and orphan wildlife in Massachusetts. We don't feel that we are good enough biologists to decide what animals are important and which animals are not important.
In other words, this is a good thing we're doing. We're trying to make these animals have a second chance. Any animal that doesn't come here is probably going to die in the wild. You know, it's either going to be eaten by somebody else, which is part of the natural cycles, or it's going to just lie and suffer until it passes away.
Like this harrowing story of a mama possum brought in with a split jaw from being hit by a car.
Police brought him in and he had a fractured jaw. Essentially right down the center of his jaw had split and separated.
Only to find out that he was a she, carrying 9 extra patients inside her pouch.
And they were so small at that point. Dr. Patel devised a way that she could actually wire the jaw shut. Now, this is not something we've ever done before with a possum, meaning that we had to really closely monitor to make sure the babies were still feeding, everyone was healthy, it wasn't overtaxing on mom. But she did really, really well. And actually the feeding tube came out a few days ago, earlier than we expected. Mom is eating on her own with this piece of wire in there, self-feeding no problem, and all 9 babies have managed to stay attached and are growing every single day.
And the miracles do not stop there. Take the story of this Canadian goose.
This goose was not having a successful existence with humans. You know, living around humans was not going well for this goose.
Animal control had been tracking this elusive goose, a victim of a crime.
It was found that he also had gunshot inside of him. He also was suffering from lead poisoning. And he actually died on the table, then was resuscitated, and then had a second operation, died on the table, was resuscitated. This was an amazing goose. And he was released back to the wild about 2 months later, which was incredible.
Incredible, because survival odds are poor.
Of the wild animals that we treat, 50% at best, 50% of them will make it back to the wild. 50% are going to die in the process. They're either going to be deliberately euthanized because they're carrying a disease that we don't want to spread to people or to other animals, or they have an injury that we can't we just can't treat.
There are also budget and infrastructure factors that threaten wildlife mortality.
We have denied treatment of wild animals for both a lack of funding, but also a lack of stamina, also a lack of space. Like right this very minute in this building, we have 55 raccoons. 55 baby raccoons that have, mothers have been killed on the road, have befallen some sort of injury. Now realize each raccoon family has five babies in it, so we're talking about 11 families here that but we can't care. These animals need to be fed every 20 minutes. All that screaming you hear in the background is raccoons begging for food, and there are people in there feeding constantly, almost from sun up to sundown.
Take funding, for example. The hospital is by law required to provide the same level of care as of commercial veterinarian hospital without the state or federal aid.
If it was in a commercial setting, the average cost for every one of those animals would be about $100 per day. $100 a day, and multiply it times the 5,000 animals that we see that come into our centers. And then we multiply that times the average number of animals, the average number of days that these animals stay in the hospital. You're going to come up with a figure that is somewhere between $4 million and $7 million. Now that does not even come close to what our budgets are.
We are bound and constricted by how much funding we can raise. And I would say, you know, it caps how many animals we can treat. It also has this, there's always an edge to, okay, will we make it till next year? Will we make it to the following year? You know, because nothing is guaranteed.
What's your understanding to why wildlife care isn't receiving funding?
Everybody thinks it should be funded, but nobody wants to fund it.
Caring for wildlife seems a little bit off-center because we're caring for something that doesn't directly impact us. But the problem is it does impact us. The health of the environment and the health of the habitats we're living on is going to reflect in the health of who we are as people.
The uncertainty looming around funding comes as the need soars.
The need for veterinary care and rehabilitative care for wildlife continues to grow. Every year there's more and more because encroachment on the land is more and more, and they were here first. So the more we cut down trees, the more we disturb habitat, the more we introduce chemicals, the more that wildlife need from us.
The hospital tries to supplement its funding through their Odd Pet Vet program.
They bring in birds and reptiles, amphibians, and those animals get cared for here for a price, like a commercial practice, and 100% of those dollars go to the nonprofit, and that gives us about 20% of our funding.
In addition, the public can also drop off their odd pets at the hospital while they are away. There are a lot of areas of need, but what is the concentration right now?
That's a great question, because it's everything. I would say, though, that right now, the biggest thing we need in fundraising is individual donors.
As for now, the hospital's most valuable resource is its volunteers.
He still thinks he's eating.
Oh!
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Once more. Through its community approach efforts, the hospital works to bridge the gap between the community and nature.
We can't read about it in a book. We can't stay in and watch it on television. We have to be able to have safe contact, not unsafe contact.
Safe contact with the wild is introduced here through the wide range of classes, internships, and community service opportunities that are offered to all.
Howard told me to save the extra food out until the photography people get here.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha. All right, now what kind of turtles are these guys?
So those are also Diamondback terrapins.
All right, that's the same thing as what we saw in the other room.
New England Wildlife Center's doors are open here in South Weymouth or on Cape Cod. Come and get acquainted with your wild neighbors.
and learn about the animals from their backyard, learn about the wildlife that lives in our area. And they get to work right alongside of us with professional veterinarians and veterinary technicians and rehabilitators so that they are able to bring those animals back to the wild.
On Cape Cod or in South Weymouth to see them, or to volunteer or to learn about wildlife care. And now we're going to move on to our second special program of the day, and that is Cooking with Jean Lenihan. Let's see what Jean Lenihan has cooked today.
I'm flying high, but I've got a feeling I'm falling for nobody else but you. You caught my eye, and I've got a feeling I'm falling.
Hi everybody, welcome to Cooking with Jean. This is episode 5. I'm Jean Lenihan from Eastwind Lobster and Grill. We're right here on the water in Buzzards Bay for 27 years and counting, our kitchen and fish market. Today we're going to make a pan-seared scallop with a bacon creamy aioli sauce. We're also going to do a pan-seared scallop with lemon zest and butter. Very simple, both techniques. We're going to show you how quick, easy, delicious, simple, and decadent these scallops will be. Okay, so the first thing we're going to make is a pan-seared scallop with bacon aioli sauce. We have bacon, 4 slices of just a hardwood smoked bacon that we're going to put into the oven. Our scallops they're from New Bedford, and they're a dry sea scallop. These are actually a very large scallop. This is a pound of scallops, which would be what we suggest to buy for 2 people for dinner. You could get away with a little bit less because scallops are so rich. What we're going to do with these scallops first, before we pan-sear them, is we're going to get them nice and dry. That's a technique for when you're pan-searing anything. You should get your fish nice and dry so that when it goes into a hot pan, it gets a nice crust. So we're going to cook the scallops 2 different ways, one with a lemon zest and butter, and the other, like I said, with the aioli. So I have 2 pans that we're going to work with. Just a pinch of salt. We're making an aioli, which is generally an egg-based and an oil-based with mayonnaise. Today we're kicking it up a little bit. We're going to use some sour cream, mayo, Parmesan cheese, a little bit of our house spice, which you've heard about many times now. It's the Mama Bear spice, garlic, salt, pepper, onion, and parsley. That's our go-to spice for the house. We're going to drizzle in a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to garnish it with some fresh parsley that we just minced up. Again, the main player in this is the bacon. Scallops and bacon, match made in heaven in my opinion, so this is going to be one really delicious sauce. We want to make sure our pans are sprayed with non-stick spray. I'm not really going to add any oil or butter just yet because I don't want it to burn. So we're going to heat our pans. Oops. If you've watched any of our prior shows, you'll know with pan searing what you want to do is you want to get your pan hot to the touch. We don't want to add anything now because it will just stick and it will steam rather than pan sear. So we're just going to let this get almost to the smoking point before we add our scallops. Okay, I'm going to put 8 scallops into each. You hear that nice sizzle? I'm going to turn them and turn them down a minute. Nice and sticky, which is good. Nice and dry. This one is cooking a little bit faster, so I'm going to give them a flip. See how they're not even sticking to the pan. But look at that crust. The only thing we put on these scallops so far is just a little bit of salt. That's it. No butter, no oil. Don't need it because we're going to season them afterwards. These are ready. See the nice grill marks? You're going to look like a chef in your own kitchen if you have a grill pan.
I used to.
When these are done, we're just going to let them hang out. So we're going to serve these warm or room temperature. They don't even have to be so warm because we're treating these as an appetizer today. These are going to have some lemon zest butter, which is going to be, I would serve that as an entree. Some nice roasted vegetables, or even right on top of a salad. It'd be beautiful. Okay, these are pretty much where we want them. This pan cooks really fast. I'm going to turn it down just a hair. What we're going to add to this now, I'm going to add a sprinkle of Mama Bear, again our house spice. I didn't add this earlier because I don't want the herbs to burn in there. This is some melted butter. I'm going to add just a dollop of that. And for lemon lovers out there, we're going to put in a little bit of lemon zest. This is not a fancy zester, but it works. A little lemon zest on top. That's where all the flavor is in the zest. So you don't need a lot. That, my friends, is done. We're just going to move this over, let that hang out. We're going to tend to our other scallops with the nice lines on them. You generally don't have to turn them. Again, I'm just doing this for show purposes, to show you that they're not sticking, they're well cooked, and they're beautifully browned. Okay, our scallops are resting. We just finished cooking them, so about 80% cooked. They're going to continue to cook in their pans while they're resting. We're going to make an aioli sauce. Dare I call it an aioli sauce? It could be a remoulade, but we are using mayo, sour cream, Parmesan cheese, drizzle of olive oil, and some of our house spice. First, we're going to put in about a cup of sour cream. You can use sour cream with mayo, Greek yogurt, one of them or all of them. I love to cook with Greek yogurt. We're not using it today, but I am going to use some sour cream. And a little bit of mayo. So in total, this is about a cup. Now, here's the bacon. We got the bacon nice and crusty. Okay, so we want to just rip up the bacon. It's not burnt, but it's definitely well done. Okay, we cooked it on parchment paper, so it won't shrink in the oven, and also the oil is extracted from it as well. So our salt and pepper is magically in our house spice, as well as a little bit of garlic, onion, parsley. Final ingredient, drizzle of olive oil. Now, if your favorite spice, or if you like basil, basil would go really well with this, especially after we add the grated cheese. Basil and grated cheese are a marriage match in heaven. Right, so let's add the grated cheese. This is about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. You don't have to add it, but I think it adds a nice little dimension to it. Another level of richness going in there. Fresh parsley. Again, you could use basil. So we didn't add any lemon to this. This I would serve as a main course. It would go great with a rice or some noodles, some grilled vegetables, some steamed carrots, whatever you like. It's pretty simple. Again, there's just a little bit of lemon zest. Drizzle this with some butter. Some herbs in there from the Mama Bear. Okay, I'm going to go for one of these first.
I'm flying high, but I got a feeling I'm falling for nobody else but you.
Now I need a bite of this one. I love lemon. Just enough butter. Just enough salt and pepper. Pretty good. Thank you. Perfect.
Falling for nobody else but you. I'm flying high.
Thank you for joining us today. We made some great scallops, and hopefully you can try them at home. Simple, delicious. easy, and that's key to what we try to do around here. We hope to see you all soon at our shop, where everything is homemade, fresh, local, and delicious. Stay tuned for our next show, which will be featuring fish and some shrimp dishes in parchment paper.
I used to. I used to.
And now we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hello and thank you for being with us this morning. This is Good Morning Wareham. We're broadcasting live from our WCTV studio at 505 Main Street. It is your source for local news, weather, traffic report, and more information. And now for a moment in history. Let's take a look at where we were today in history. So on this day, back only 2 years ago in 2017, the London Bridge was attacked. Terrorists drove a van along a pedestrian path on the bridge and then proceeded to stab people with steak knives. In total, 8 were killed, along with 48 injured people, as the trio of terrorists were killed by authorities. And also on this day in 1965, Edward H. White II became the first American to walk in space, 120 miles above Earth. He left his ship, the Gemini, attached to tether. He moved by using gun that shot out oxygen. The first person to walk in outer space was Soviet Alexei Leonov. My pronunciation is terrible. This is a Russian name. Who did it only 3 months prior to the first American to work in space. And also in 1937, baseball player Josh Gibson catch for the Homestead Grays of the Negro Leagues hit what is thought to be the longest home run in baseball history, reportedly reaching 580 feet in Yankee Stadium. This home run would beat Mickey Mantle's by over 15 feet. The Negro Leagues did not have the statistics that we have today, but it is said that Josh Gibson is thought to be one of the greatest hitters of all times. And today's birthday, we are making a shout out to Rafael Nadal, the Spanish tennis player born in 1986. Nadal is the world-class talent in his sport with 17 Grand Slam tournaments wins. And happy birthday to everybody else celebrating their big day today. That's all for today in History segment. To learn more cool historical facts, please go online and at history.com. Stay with us. The coffee segment is next. But first, let's take a look at our events calendar. morning, Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, broadcasted live right here at our WCTV studio at 505 Main Street. And now is the coffee segment. With me is Barbara Meehan, our Monday guest. We can say that, right? Our Monday guest. We are continuing our discussion on Alzheimer's advocacy. But first, I would like to make this another. I made another mistake. Pronunciation ain't my thing. So, Rafael Nadal. Nadal. Okay, he's the famous tennis player. Yes, okay. That is out of the way. Now, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
I would like us to talk about the role of an advocator and also what it is like, because reading about Alzheimer's advocacy today, most of the articles did talk about the forgotten victims in this war, and that the forgotten victims are the actually advocates, you who have been working towards fundraising and to take care of your loved one. How does this resonate with you?
Absolutely perfect description. Being sometimes the forgotten victim, because so much is focused on the individual with whatever dementia, and being a caregiver, and I have many friends who are caregivers now or have been, it's exhausting. It is 24/7. You are constantly worrying about this person that you love. And in addition to that, though, you're doing all of the other things, the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, and you kind of, I'm not sure where you get the energy to do what you have to do. You just find it. I have said on many occasions, I would never have thought I would have the patience to take on the challenge of caring for someone with dementia. But it comes from somewhere. You do what you have to do. And that's one of the reasons I became more and more involved, especially when Faye went into long-term care, because I had so much time on my hands now. I'd go visit her every day, but it still left a lot of time. So I became more involved in advocacy work, and speaking whenever I possibly can, like here. I am co-chair of the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which I'll talk about a little bit after, because I'm going to promote our walk. It is the Alzheimer's Association largest fundraiser. There are, I think, about 625 walks nationwide in every state. When you go, if you go to the Better Business Bureau to look up charitable organizations and what percentage is given to the actual cause, Alzheimer's Association is one of the best there is. It's anywhere between 75 and 80% of the funds raised go directly towards research, educational programs. There's a ton of educational programs they offer for caregivers, for advocates, for care consultations. There's a 24/7 helpline. And I know next week you're going to have on someone from the association, and she'll talk more about that. But it's, I think for me it was I needed to do something with my energy and my passion, because I want to see an end to this illness. It is devastating. The statistics are heartbreaking. It's the 6th leading cause of death. And there's speculation that it's probably higher than that, but people with dementia frequently have a co-occurring illness, and unfortunately, they haven't taken care of it because they don't remember to take care of it. With Faye, I remember when we first began looking into the fact that there was something wrong, I discovered that in spite of the fact that every night I'd say to her, her cholesterol and blood pressure pills were right on the end table, and I would say, did you take your pills? And she'd always say yes. And then I discovered for 2 months she had not been taking them. And it's, you know, individuals who are diabetic, who don't do what they're supposed to do, or she seemed oblivious to being in pain because she had a badly ingrown toenail, and it wasn't until I saw her limping, and then I looked, I'm like, oh my God, we have to do something about this. And it's exhausting. I have friends who had to deal with wandering in the night. Fortunately, I never had to deal with that, but where an individual with dementia will get up in the middle of the night and not really realize that it's night, and possibly just go out. So then you have locks on the very top of your door or alarms. I had a wonderful woman in my support group who was such a doll, who had to put a lock on her refrigerator because her husband ate all the time. And so she had to keep him out, so she had to lock the refrigerator.
And well, and not to cut you off, but I'm thinking, when you were dealing with Faye, at least you just said that you had all this time on your hands and you had to, you got involved to fight, right? But I'm thinking those families, those individuals who are still working and they do not have additional time, how do they handle this? Are there any support systems?
Yes, there are a lot of individuals who, you know, hopefully you have family who will help. In our case, no one lived here in the area. A lot of people, if you can afford it, you can get help to come into the home. It's expensive. And then there are some things that are available that individuals can get in terms of personal care attendant, it's called. But that is, you have to be on Mass Health to get it. And there's a huge group of people who kind of fall into this middle section where you don't qualify on that end, but you don't have the money to pay for in-home kind of care. And I think eventually that's why people have to say, I can't do this at home anymore, because it's so overwhelming. And as someone becomes more debilitated, it's almost impossible for an individual to do it alone. But I know next week Jen will talk about some of the advocacy. And there are support groups. I run a phone support group. I participated in a support group. And I tell everyone who's just maybe beginning the journey, find a support group, because it truly will save your sanity.
And that support group, what do you tell them? If somebody calls you and say, I mean, this is too much. I have my mother, I have my loved one. What do you tell them?
Well, there's usually, with a support group, there's a group of people, and interestingly enough, other individuals can provide assistance in terms of, well, this is what I tried. And that's what I found in the support group I attended back when Faye was still alive. Everybody in the group gets it because they're living it, and that's really important. And if you talk to a caregiver for someone with dementia, they will all tell you, until you actually have to do it, you have no idea what it's like. I remember my sister taking care of Faye one day so that I could go to a college reunion. And she and my niece had her all day, and when I got home, I said to my sister, how was it? And she said to my niece, who at the time was 13, tell Auntie Barbara what it was like. And Stace was like, oh my God, Auntie Barbara, I turned away for 30 seconds and she disappeared on us, because they get something in their head. and it's very tunnel vision. And because she had found something she was going to buy when they were shopping, she went to pay for it.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so it was very, very difficult to adjust to. And my sister said to me, my sister is a recovering alcoholic, and her sobriety is incredibly important to her. And what she said to me was, if I had to deal with it every day, I'd be drinking again. Which, to know for a recovering alcoholic how important their sobriety is, to make that statement was to say to me, oh my God, I know how this is incredibly difficult, what you're doing every single day.
When you and Faye got the first diagnosis, did you guys have the time to sit down and discuss what this will mean and what this will mean to both of you?
No, Faye chose to, and everybody reacts in their own way. I have a good friend, Mike, who is an incredible advocate, who has Lewy body dementia. He is out there in the front lines talking. Faye opted to not really acknowledge there was anything wrong for as long as she had her illness, except once or twice there were moments. One was at Mohegan Sun, and we had gone to a concert, but we couldn't last very long because large crowds make people with dementia very anxious. So we left and we go to Starbucks, and we got Frappuccinos and we had to wait. So we're standing there, and I handed her her straw, and she took the end off and blew the wrapper in my face. And I said, oh my God, this is my punishment for never having children. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, yep, now you've got me. And that was like a momentary indication that she knew she wasn't the way she used to be. Because of the two of us, I would say she was the supportive person. She was the person who supported me. She was the more level. I would be the overreactor and the somewhat dramatic, moody individual. And then another incident, we were at Longhorn having lunch, and she saw someone and said, oh, that looks like so-and-so. And I said, and she said, but she's not with her hubby. And I said, no. I said, it's not her. And I said, she can't drive anymore. And Faye said, why not? And I said, because she has Alzheimer's, like you do. And her reaction was, I have Alzheimer's? And I said, yes. And she said, I should probably see a doctor. I said, you do. Are there pills for it? Yes, you take them. Oh, that looks like my sister-in-law over in that booth. And then it was gone. But for that moment there, she knew that something wasn't right with her. But she never, I think, she never really wanted to really face it. And that was all right.
Yeah.
Everybody handles it in their own way.
Yeah.
I think whatever the illness may be.
You talk about patience. You mentioned patience. You said, before you said, I don't know if I would have the patience to deal with it. So where did you find the patience to deal with it?
I don't know. I just know that had she been able to understand, Faye would have been really shocked that I actually found the patience to be able, but it comes down to, this is the person you love, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a parent, where you say, I love this person and I need to do this for them now. And in a way, Faye had gotten me through a variety of difficult times. And I thought, basically now it's my turn. And it's just hard because every day you're watching someone you love disappear a little more every single day. And it's President Reagan's wife, Nancy, described it as the long goodbye. And that's exactly what it is, because you are grieving over a long period. For me, it was 8.5 years of grieving. And yet, when that moment comes, when they finally pass, it's another huge moment of grief. Much more so than I realized I was not prepared for. I thought, because in many ways you reach a point when your loved one has no real quality of life where you are saying to God, please give her some peace. And you know that they need a rest. You know, when you've reached the point like she did of no longer, she had not been able to speak for a year and a half. She had now was immobile. She was eating pureed food, which I'm not even going to go there because that's just disgusting stuff. And it was, there was nothing. She was such an active, intelligent woman. And to see this was just, as much as I hated to let her go, I needed God to know that it was, and I, every day, you know, towards the end, I would say, just, God, give her some peace. And then at the last week she was alive, I pretty much told her on a regular basis, it's okay to go. I will be okay. And everyone who deals with this does the same thing. Will say to their loved one, for whatever reason, they need permission to go. They need to know it's okay to let go. And that's what I did. I said to her, it's okay to go. I'll be okay. If you had seen me the morning she died, you would not think I was okay. But because it is, no matter what, that moment when you have to let go and know you're never going to see this person again in this lifetime.
You've talked about a lot of heavy, heavy stuff. This is overall a very emotive topic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can select a particular thing about the whole journey between you and Faye and Alzheimer's, that was very hard. Was it the perishing of the memory? You were afraid that she will never be able to recognize you? Or it's just that to watch her not be what she worked so hard to be?
I think that was it, to not knowing the person she had been. She was an incredibly good tennis player. She played golf. We played golf. She had taught me to play tennis. She was incredibly intelligent. She was, oh my goodness, when she retired, she went to work at R.F. Morse's in the greenhouses and turned into some sort of crazy gardener with incredible gift for gardening. And she would bring home, they'd be going to throw away these plants that they thought were beyond. She'd be bringing them home in the back of the truck and bringing them back to life. I hate gardening. So I plant a little and I do it for her, and then I kind of say to her, okay, now you need to take care of these for me.
Yes.
It's just, it's seeing that diminishment of who a person was. We both, Faye would read, you know, we'd read a couple books a week. We would, you know, we did concerts, plays. And it's all of that you're watching gradually go, but also that last moment when I walked out with the people from the funeral home to their vehicle. I said to them, may I go with her? And they're like, sure. And because my feeling was I walked into the nursing home with her, I was going to walk out with her. And I walked out, and it was at that moment when you realize you're never, ever going to see this person again, that just pretty much ripped my heart out, and was really, really hard. But I'm a big believer in that we get signs from the people who are no longer here, that they're around and that they're thinking of us. You know, my sister and my niece and I, all of us know that my dad is frequently letting us know he is around. I know Faye lets me know on a regular basis. And it's always at that moment where I kind of need to know that she's thinking about me. And I'm sure there are people who believe that once you die, that's it, it's over, you're gone. I don't believe that, and I think part of it is I can't believe that because I cannot believe that I will never ever see this person I loved again. And I just assume she's going to be there waiting when my time comes with all of the pets.
Saving a spot for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
A spot in the,
I hope. Oh my goodness. I mean, I know she's in heaven now. We have another, and I used to say that at the nursing home, be glad it's her because she's the nice one. And, but it's just, it's that gradual every day watching the person that you love. But then you cling to moments when hospice was involved. We had they have volunteers who come in a couple times a week, and they would read to Faye. And sometimes when I would come in, the volunteers had said to me, "It's so obvious that a part of her knows who you are because she looks at you with such love." And so that for me was a really good thing, was to know that other people noticed this and thought that she was, you know, she did in fact in some way know who I was, or know that I was someone who cared about her.
Yes. So we have like 3 or 4 minutes left, but last question for you, that is, most people do not share that they're going through this, that their loved one has Alzheimer's. Why do you think so?
Because there is this stigma to it, and I see it all the time, and we are trying so hard to fight that. It's like mental health, mental illness, or addiction. Oh, we don't talk about it. It's not contagious, and people who are caring for if you know someone who is caring for someone with dementia, reach out to them and say, is there something I can do? If you've got people like me who don't ever say, I need help. And people need to understand that it's not easy to sit with someone who has dementia because they'll ask you the same question 20 times. So you answer them. Or you can change your answers, it really doesn't matter. But the person who's caring for them needs, the isolation that occurs for a caregiver is very pronounced, and it takes a great toll on people. So if you know someone, tell them, you know, bake them a batch of cookies.
Encourage people to
make them scallops. That's what you do.
I'll take them to Jean Lanahan. Well, thank you very much. We have 2 minutes. Give us a shout out about what is going on. The event, you say.
Oh, my walk. The walk to End Alzheimer's. The one, I am co-chair of the walk that will be at Bristol Community College on September 21st. Next week, when Jen is here, we can tell you a little more. I hope people will think about creating a team or joining a team. I have a team. But there is also a walk in Plymouth on the 14th, and that I know is probably a little more convenient for some of your viewers. I'll be there too because I volunteer.
Very good. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me. This has meant a great deal to me.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, so this concludes our morning show. My guest was Barbara Meehan, here to talk about Alzheimer's advocacy. And we'll continue this discussion next Monday. If you missed us this morning, this show will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. and we'll put it on YouTube so you can watch it anytime you want. This concludes our program. Thank you, Wareham, for joining us, and see you on Wednesday.